The 2019 Tour de France starts on Saturday, July 6th in Brussels, Belgium to honor the 50th anniversary of the Belgian great Eddy Merckx's first Tour de France victory. That said, the Tour is going to be without one of its greatest current champions in Chris Froome, who rides for Team Ineos, but crashed in a training race and shattered his femur. He's out for at least 6 months. To make matters worse, the Dutchman Tom Dumoulin of Team Sunweb crashed in May's Tour of Italy and is going to miss the Tour as well. That means this year's Tour is going to be one of the most wide open in a long time. So there's lots of room for us to make some fun predictions. Here we go. First of all, this is a bad year for field sprinters or fans who like watching field sprints. Some of the field sprinters who we're used to seeing win lots of stages aren't even going to be racing. Take Germany's Marcel Kittel, for example. Kittel's really struggled over the last year and a half with Katusha Alpecin and actually was released from his contract several weeks ago. He's now trying to find himself and even decide if he wants to come back to the sport at all. Second of all, you have Fernando Gaviria, the Colombian who you may remember won 2 stages and actually wore the yellow jersey for a day last year while riding for Quick-Step. Now he's riding for UAE Team Emirates, and he, unfortunately, injured his knee in a crash back in April. That's 2 of the Tour's best field sprinters in recent memory not even taking the start. If you are looking for field sprints, the rider to watch this year is the Dutchman Dylan Groenewegen from Team Jumbo-Visma. He won 2 stages last year, 1 stage the year before, and he's already won 10 races this season. He's going to emerge as the best pure field sprinter in the 2019 Tour. That said, the battle for the green jersey in this year's Tour is going to be one of the most ferocious in recent memory. That more aggressive course design that I told you about, well, that's going to favor riders like Peter Sagan, for one, who, oh, by the way, has won 6 green jerseys, Michael Matthews from Team Sunweb, who won the 1 green jersey the year that Peter Sagan was DQ'd, and maybe even Frenchman Julien Alaphilippe, who won 2 mountain stages in last year's Tour, also won the King of the Mountains prize, the polka dot jersey, in last year's Tour, but could do well on several of the tricky uphill stage finishes in this year's race. So take Sagan, Matthews, Alaphilippe, and maybe someone like Team CCC's Greg van Avermaet, and we're going to have a pretty intense battle to win the Tour's green jersey. What about the defending champ, Geraint Thomas, the Welshman who rides for Team Ineos? Well, I think it's going to be a bad Tour for Geraint Thomas. In fact, I bet he doesn't even finish within the top 10. First of all, he doesn't seem to have fared well in the pressure that comes with winning a Tour de France. He finally recorded some results at the Tour of Romandy in early May, which certainly was cause for optimism. However, he crashed out of his final pre-Tour prep and training race, the Tour of Switzerland 2 weeks ago. To make matters worse, his teammate, Egan Bernal, is the rider that we predict will win the 2019 Tour de France. You may remember Bernal last year as that 21-year-old Colombian hotshot dragging Thomas and Froome up the mountains late in the Tour de France. Well, he was supposed to go to this year's Tour of Italy for a chance to ride for himself. However, he broke his collarbone the week before the Giro even started. And while we're on the subject of Colombians, let's talk about Team Movistar's Nairo Quintana. If Bernal falters, Quintana's another rider to watch. He altered his training, and in particular his race calendar, to give him more race days heading into the Tour this year. We think that's going to set him up well. And Quintana's without a contract for next season, and he's rumored to be negotiating with several teams. There's no better bargaining chip than a yellow jersey, so we think Quintana's got the added motivation he needs to possibly upset his compatriot Bernal and win the Tour for himself. We also predict this is going to be a really good Tour for the French. First of all, they've got Groupama FDJ's Thibaut Pinot, a rider who returns to the Tour after kind of a lost weekend Tour de France-wise. But he did really well in last year's Tour of Spain. He finished 6th overall and then won an important one-day race in Italy called the Giro di Lombardia. Actually, now it's called Il Lombardia. That's given him a lot of confidence that he's carried into 2019. Chris Froome himself, before he crashed out of it, called Pinot the strongest rider at the recent Critérium du Dauphiné, and we think Pinot is a good pick for at least a podium finish, possibly the yellow jersey, making him the first French winner since Bernard Hinault won his 5th and final Tour in 1985. We should also talk about Romain Bardet from AG2R La Mondiale. Bardet was a perennial contender for the podium, but last year didn't really live up to the hype surrounding him. This year, though, he seems to have renewed his focus, altered his training just a little bit, and we think he's timing his peak perfectly for a race as mountainous as this year's Tour. Lastly, we mentioned him before, there's De Koning Quick-Step's Julian Alaphilippe, last year's King of the Mountains winner and a winner of 2 mountain stages. Alaphilippe is a rider who's so incredibly talented that given the nature of this year's course, we could see Alaphilippe winning both the green jersey and another polka dot jersey as the Tour's King of the Mountains. What about the Americans? Well, let's talk about 2, an American and actually a Canadian. First off, we've got TJ Van Garderen, who you may remember spent the last several seasons racing for Team BMC. Now he's riding for EF Education First, and he finished 2nd overall at that important race I've been talking about, the Critérium du Dauphiné. TJ's heading into this race in support of Rigoberto Urán, who finished 2nd overall in 2017, but we still think he's a sneaky contender for a high finish of his own. I actually really like his chances in the Tour's only individual time trial midway through the race while it visits the Pyrenees. Then there's the Canadian Mike "Rusty" Woods. Woods has proven himself to be one of the sport's best pure climbers, particularly by winning a mountain stage in last year's Tour of Spain and then a bronze medal at the World Championships in Austria on an incredibly hilly course. Now Woods gets his first chance at the Tour, and while he'll be called to work for Urán as well, we think there are several stages in which he'll be given a green light to race for himself. So those are some of our predictions for the 2019 Tour de France. Who are yours? Who do you think's going to win the Tour? Is Bernal going to run away with it like we think he will? Could Quintana actually overcome his younger compatriot? Will the French finally win another Tour? Let us know your picks for this year's race in the comments below.